That would be fun. 5 years from now. Yeah, I think it would be.
left, and then of course the president tweeted. First thing this morning, Chris, let me read you that tweet and then do some analysis on the other side. She said, the fake news is going crazy with wacky Congresswoman Wilson, who was secretly on a very personal call and gave a total lie on content. Of course, we know that she is regarded as a close family friend to Johnson. She was riding in a car with Johnson at the time of the Congress. Bottom line, though, I spoke with an official here who made the point that, look, Congresswoman Wilson was out on TV again today, criticizing this administration, taking issue with the ways in which her words have been characterized. She did say that she wants to now really focus on the investigation, exactly on what happened in Niger. But there's no doubt, Chris, I think that moving forward today, you're going to see officials here really try to shift the narrative away from this and put the focus on policy. Of course, just last night, the Senate passing that budget bill, which could potentially pave the way for a tax reform package. That's what the president and other top officials here really want to be talking about. So I think that when Sarah Huckabee Sanders comes here to the podium, she's going to get asked about, of course, all of this. But I wouldn't be surprised if she tried to continue to turn it.
No, I didn't say which one. Something that makes like the process. Or just, you just talk to a sure. That would be good.
Laura Trump saying that she did, in fact, see a transcript of the calls. That's correct. During an interview in which she was defending her father-in-law, frankly. Of course, the question becomes, how did she see that transcript if she, in fact, did? She doesn't work at the White House. Is there not a recording? You'll recall that earlier this week, Sarah Huckabee Sanders was asked specifically if there is a recording of the conversation. She said flatly there isn't. All of that will likely be revisited, and then of course it goes to the issue that we heard from General John Kelly here from the podium yesterday, when he said it felt as though it was inappropriate for the Congresswoman to be listening to that call at all. And of course, Sarah Sanders did say that Kelly was listening to and sitting in on that call That's undoubtedly another aspect. And again, I think a lot of different questions that Sarah Sanders presented today, not only on this, but just on the investigation. What did the public know? When did you know? And how engaged was he and briefed? And how much depended on keeping up to date on the fine details of this issue in Niger. I think all of that is going to be front and center. That's right. General John Kelly saying that Congresswoman Wilson, during that event that you mentioned in 2016, bragged about the fact that she had secured money for a field office that was opening in Florida. Congresswoman Wilson saying that that money was secured long before she took her post, and that listen to a recording actually of the remarks. What she does talk about is some of the process by which she moved to have the building named and put into place. So that was, she believes, a mischaracterization of events. The tape certainly suggests that that might be the case.
Hey, it's John. You stay here, visit some body first. So it's kind of right here, like this is for the first year. This is for the rich people. And then you can do you know well, tell me what plans that we bring in the other New Year's set.
That's a short hand. Yeah.
Take all. I saw. Yeah. So, what's the same with leader? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know which training that it's on. Oh, and I did.
They've been but not.
Just put it all into
You want to have a girl and Jamin doesn't come out there. Does he?
Jamin had 220 in the pool.
Yeah.
Sorry, but
Yeah.
You got somebody who's doing this.
Good afternoon. It's Friday. Come on, guys. Don't let Brian Karam show you up. I know that there is more spirit out there. As many of you saw last night, the Senate adopted a budget resolution. This is another important milestone for tax reform and sets the stage for us to pass major tax cuts that will deliver more jobs and higher wages for hardworking Americans all over the country. Many of you have seen today that the First Lady donated the gown she wore to the inaugural balls to the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History. In her speech, she mentioned that leading up to Inauguration Day, everyone was so busy getting ready that the dress's designer ended up only having 2 weeks to work on the First Lady's design and create the dress. It obviously came together, and the First Lady is very excited to take part in the rich tradition of First Ladies contributing to and maintaining our great history. By the way, if you've not visited the Smithsonian's exhibit of First Lady dresses, you certainly should take time to do that. Lastly, today is a particularly special day for all of us here at the White House. There are a lot of people here who serve the President and our country behind the scenes. One of those people is Hope Hicks, our incredible communications director. Tomorrow is her birthday, and as you know, I love a good birthday. So I wanted to make sure to mention it here in the last briefing of the week. So happy birthday, Hope. If you get a minute, be sure to send her a note and wish her a happy birthday. Thanks for your selfless leadership and perhaps most importantly, your great sense of humor. And with that, happy Friday, and I'll take your questions. Jeff.
Sir, I'd like to open with a question about the Fed. The President finished his interviews this week and said in an interview with Fox Business that he would consider having Powell and Taylor come to the Fed together. Should we take that as a signal that the other candidates are not going to get the job?
We still don't have an announcement on that. As the President said, that's something that's certainly under consideration, but he hasn't ruled out a number of options, and he'll have an announcement on that soon in the coming days.
What else is he looking for as he makes his decision?
As you know, I'm not going to get ahead of a big announcement like that the President himself will make, but we'll keep you posted when we're ready to roll that out. Blake.
On that note, Janet Yellen, the President was extremely critical of her during the campaign, saying at one point she was too political, that she should be ashamed of herself, essentially said she was a political arm of President and Hillary Clinton. Now he said some rather nice things about her, most recently a couple times that he respects her. What has changed in his thinking as it relates to Janet Yellen over the last year, and can you shed some light on their relationship?
I think them having the opportunity to spend some time directly communicating with one another, certainly through this process. But beyond that, again, I'm not going to weigh any further into this process and where we are, other than the fact that the President will make an announcement on it soon.
When is the President himself going to weigh in on what happened to those 4 special ops soldiers in Niger?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I follow your question there.
Will the President address publicly, and if so, when? What exactly happened to these 4 special ops soldiers?
Yeah, as we said, as General Kelly specifically addressed several times yesterday, that the Department of Defense has initiated a review which occurs anytime there's an American that's killed in action. We're going through that process. The President, the Department of Defense, and frankly the entire country and government want to know exactly what happened. And the President and the nation are grateful for those 4 American heroes, and we won't rest until we get some answers, and that's part of this process, and that's what they'll do. And when the time is appropriate, we'll talk about the details of the investigation.
Sarah, the South Florida Sun Sentinel released a video of Congresswoman Wilson's speech in 2015. In the speech, it doesn't appear that she referenced funding for the FBI building in South Florida. Does General Kelly still stand by the statement that he made yesterday, that he felt that she was grandstanding and that she was taking credit
Absolutely. General Kelly said he was stunned that Representative Wilson made comments at a building dedication honoring slain FBI agents about her own actions in Congress, including lobbying former President Obama on legislation. As General Kelly pointed out, if you're able to make a sacred act like honoring American heroes all about yourself, you're an empty barrel. If you don't understand that reference, I'll put it a little more simply. As we say in the South, all hat, no cattle.
Well, in fact, have you seen the speech?
I have.
And then you know that most of it was her effusively praising these FBI agents. And when she was talking about what she did in Congress, she was not talking about securing $20 million. She was talking about naming the building for these FBI agents, who she then went on to effusively praise. And that was the bulk of the speech.
She also mentioned that, and she also had quite a few comments that day that weren't part of that speech and weren't part of that video that were also witnessed by many people that were there. What General Kelly referenced yesterday.
Tell us specifically, because
exactly what he said. There was a lot of grandstanding. He was stunned that she had taken that opportunity to make it about herself.
Can he come out here and talk to us about this at some point?
I think he's addressed that pretty thoroughly yesterday.
No, he was wrong yesterday in talking about getting the money. The money was
if you want to go after
General
Kelly, that's up to you. But I think that if you want to get into a debate with a 4-star Marine general, I think that's something highly inappropriate. Go ahead.
Thank you, Sarah. When President Trump spoke at the CIA building in January in front of the stars of 117 CIA agents who had fallen and been killed in the line of duty, he talked about a number of different things, including a lot about himself. He talked about the fake news attacking him. He talked about the MLK bus and the controversy over that. He talked about the crowd size at the
that wasn't an event set to memorialize those individuals. That was a celebration talking about the transfer of power. It's two very different events. If you look at the president's
those are not
comments at events like the 9/11 ceremony earlier this year, those were very somber. Those were focused specifically on those events. Those are not even apples to apples, so that's not a fair comparison. Jordan?
Thank you, Sarah. Putting the Congresswoman aside for a second, I want to focus on what the mother of Sergeant Johnson said. She said that she felt that the president disrespected her. And does he plan to follow up with her and repair that relationship?
Certainly, if the spirit of which those comments were intended were misunderstood, that's very unfortunate. But as the president has said, as General Kelly said, who I think has a very deep understanding of what that individual would be going through, his comments were very sympathetic, very respectful, and that was the spirit in which the president intended them. If they were taken any other way, that's certainly an unfortunate thing. John?
Thanks a lot, Sarah. The 43rd President of the United States, President George W. Bush, made some comments up in New York City yesterday, and I'd like you, if you could, just to address some comments that he made just concerning the issue of Russia, specifically Russian influence in the United States. He said the Russian government has made a project of turning Americans against each other, and he also said that Russian interference will not be successful. Foreign aggressions, including cyber attacks, disinformation, and financial influence, should never be downplayed or tolerated. Do you agree with those sentiments expressed by the former president?
Do we agree that Russian interference shouldn't be tolerated? Absolutely. And we've said that many times before, and certainly would argue that that has been repeated. I know I've said it at least a dozen times from this podium.
And I just want to follow up with a question I've asked you a few times, most recently in July. It relates to our relationship with Russia, and I've never gotten an answer for you on that. Does the President Trump, view Russia as an ally, a partner, or an adversary?
And as I've said before, I think a lot of that depends on Russia and what type of relationship they want to have and whether or not they want to be a good actor or a bad actor. And we're going to continue trying to work with them on certain things that are very important, particularly for national security, on things like Syria, on things like North Korea. We'd like to be able to work with them to confront some of those threats. And so some of that will be determined by the actions that Russia takes and how they want to be perceived. Matthew.
Thanks. I also have a question about that George W. Bush speech, but first, just to clarify, Are you saying the White House is no longer saying that the Congresswoman talked about the funding? She just talked about legislation in general?
We're talking, I specifically said, and I'll repeat it again, that General Kelly said he was stunned that she made the comments about herself, and that was the point of what he said. That was what took place here yesterday, and we still stand by those comments.
Okay, and then on the George W. Bush speech, he said at one point, bigotry seems emboldened, our politics seem more vulnerable to conspiracy theories and outright fabrication. Does President Trump agree with this assessment? And if so, what does he see as his role in addressing that?
Does he agree with the assessment of what? I'm sorry.
That, bigotry seems emboldened and our politics seem more vulnerable to conspiracy theories and outright fabrication. Those were former President Bush's words.
I think if anybody is pushing a lot of fabricated things right now, I think most of that would be coming from the news media, and we would certainly agree with that sentiment. David?
The President signed an executive
What about
order
the
today.
bigotry?
I'm sorry, I've called on David.
The President signed an executive order today. Basically, what it appears to do is it allows the Pentagon to recall retired officers into duty under the 9/11 authority that he has. What's the reason for this executive order?
I don't have anything further on that, and I'll have to get back to you, David. Sarah?
General Kelly was obviously very upset that this has now become a political conversation, the President's call with the widow, and I think more broadly the fallout of the soldiers that were killed in Niger. So why did he feel like it was appropriate to come out here to call a Congresswoman an empty barrel rather than calling her privately like he's done with other members of Congress who've been critical of the President? And why did President Trump feel the need to take that even further today and tweet about her?
I think that it's real simple. You guys are the ones talking a lot about that story, and he felt it was important to address you and all of America directly. This story has been given an enormous amount of coverage over the last 48 hours, and he thought it was important that people got a full and accurate picture of what took place, and that was a personal decision that he made, that he wanted to come out and frankly not just share with you, but like he said, share with all of America and make an appeal to America to go back to kind of honoring that sacred code of Gold Star families.
Question that the President was asked earlier today, I know there's an investigation.
And in terms of, hold on, just to finish on the rest of your question, why the President felt the need to respond, it's because it should have ended yesterday after General Kelly's comments, but it didn't. It continued, and it's still continuing today. It's still the bulk of the coverage on most every TV you turn on and most every newspaper that you open up today, and the President responded to those continued accusations and continued mischaracterizations of his comments.
One other question, the President was asked earlier today whether he authorized this mission in Niger. Can you give us any information about whether this was something he authorized or even something he was aware of before finding out that American soldiers were killed in it?
As I said, there's it's the process. Anytime an American is killed in action, there is a full review that takes place, and before we start jumping to any conclusions, we want to make sure that that is completed fully, and then we'll have those details for you at that time.
Sarah, thanks. On Niger, a senior congressional aide who was briefed on the matter said that there is an indication that there was a massive intelligence failure. Is that the assessment of the White House?
Once again, as I just told Sarah, we're going to wait until that review is complete by the Department of Defense, and we'll answer those questions at that time.
One more question, Sarah.
Sorry,
Laura Trump. Laura Trump said she saw a
Olivia.
transcript of the phone call. Can you just answer that question,
Did the
Sarah?
President authorize explicitly the operation in Niger, or was that delegated down in the
Again, I'm not going to get into any of the details at this point. You may be able to talk with those at the Department of Defense, and they can answer anything further. But where we are in the process until the review is complete, we're not going to weigh in any further. Kelly?
The Senate Foreign Relations Committee is going to take
Sorry,
up...
I'm going to try to get to everybody. Kelly, go ahead.
Given all of the reaction to the content of the President's phone call, does President Trump intend to make phone calls to families of the fallen in the future should other Americans die while he is Commander-in-Chief?
I think we're hoping and praying that those phone calls don't have to take place, and so that's where we are right now.
The Los Angeles Times has reported, we reported that the military operating in Niger had requested additional overwatch capacity and medical response assistance in the months leading up to this ambush on October 4th. Is the President satisfied that that Special Forces unit, when it went out there that day, had all the resources that it needed to operate there?
As I've said several times here today, and will continue until that review is complete, I'm not going to get into the details until that is finalized. I think too often in cases like that, we have jumped to conclusions and tried to make determinations before all of the details are known. We want to make sure that that process is complete before we weigh in. John Gizzi.
Thank you, Sarah. And have to keep it to one question today?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Even you, John. I know it'll be tough.
I obey.
Wow, if only I had that kind of power over anybody else, including my kids, that would be great.
Reluctantly. Several London publications have said that the president's visit to London, when and if the details work out, will be a working visit with Prime Minister May and not an official state visit, which means he will not be received by the Queen at Buckingham Palace. What will be the nature of his visit to London and to Prime Minister May? A working visit or a state visit?
That still hasn't been determined. We're still going back and forth with our allies there, and once we have those travel details outlined and determined, we'll certainly let you know. But they've made the invitation for the president to come. We've accepted, and we're working out the logistics. We anticipate that it'll be sometime next year, but at this point, there's no other details beyond
Downing
that.
Street has made the invitation.
State Department announced today that it's now up to 24 people who have been impacted by the sonic attacks in Havana. I wanted to ask, is the president satisfied with the investigation into what's happening, and has he reached out or considered reaching out to any of the victims?
I don't believe that he has reached out to any of the victims involved at this point. That's an ongoing investigation and something we can't weigh in on further at this time.
On the call to Sergeant Johnson, Laura Trump seemed to suggest in an interview this morning that there was a transcript of the call and that she'd read it. Is there a transcript, and has it been shared with members of the president's family?
There's not a transcript of the call. I believe she was responding to reports and things that she had read, but I haven't spoken directly with her. I'd refer you to the campaign that handles her press inquiries. But there's not a transcript. Fred?
Oh, thanks, sir. Senator John Cornyn confirmed today that he is blocking the nomination to OMB for Russ Roy to try to get more relief funds for Texas after Hurricane Harvey. Does that come as a surprise or a disappointment to the White House that the number 2 Republican would be blocking a nominee?
The administration welcomes a conversation with all members of Congress about the next disaster relief request, which we expect to come in the coming weeks. While we work with Congress on that next request, we urge the Senate to keep doing their jobs by confirming qualified nominees to crucial positions inside our government. This administration has already faced unprecedented obstruction of its nominees, and further delays only hurt the American people. And we hope that they'll get on board and make that process move further along.
Sarah, given President Bush's comments yesterday that were asked about, in general, does the White House feel it's appropriate for past presidents to be critical of the sitting president? And when was the last time President Trump spoke to President Bush?
I'm not sure the last time they spoke, but our understanding is that those comments were not directed towards the president. And in fact, when these two individuals, both past presidents, have criticized the president, they've done so by name, and very rarely do it without being pretty direct, as both of them tend to be. So we'll take them at their word that these actions and comments weren't directed towards the president.
The United Nations, of course, is following very carefully the refugee situation along the Bangladesh-Myanmar border. And President Trump today met with the UN Secretary General. Did they speak about the Rohingya refugee situation? Was the president asked for any further help? What was the tenor of their conversation?
They had a very productive conversation. We'll have a readout coming with more details about that later this afternoon. And we'll be around the rest of today to answer questions. And with that, happy Friday. Hope you guys have a good weekend. Thanks.
That was Sarah Sanders, press secretary with the White House press briefing. I am Steve Lookner. This is Right Side Broadcasting. Welcome to the press briefing post show here on Friday. Hello, everyone out there watching on YouTube and Facebook. Hello to the moderators who are moderating the chat, doing their usual great job in the chat room on the website and on YouTube. And on the YouTube chat room, I see we have JC here. I know Barbara was there earlier. So hello to everybody watching. We want to hear what you thought about the press briefing. Any thoughts about it? Did you want other questions to be asked? What do you think about what was asked and Press Secretary Sanders' answers? If you want to comment on it, I'd be happy to read your comment on the air. Give me a shout on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. Let me know what your thoughts are on the press briefing. Also, we are viewer supported, so if you like having a place to go for coverage of this and other news events besides the mainstream media, please consider making a donation, because your donations are what keeps us on the air. If you'd like to donate, you can go to the YouTube chat room right next to the broadcast and click on the $ at the bottom of the YouTube chat, or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. So one thing I noticed today, unsurprisingly, is that there were a bunch of questions about the whole president's call to the widow and General Kelly's comments on that. And then, so General Kelly, just to sum up, President Trump called one of the widows of the soldiers that was killed in Niger, I want to say a couple weeks ago, and then Representative Wilson, what is her first name? I forget. Let me get that up there. Frederica Wilson. She claimed that she had heard the call. It was on speakerphone when she was with the family, and that she thought it was a very unsympathetic call, and that President Trump's words upset the widow of the dead soldier. And then General John Kelly, the chief of staff, yesterday during the press briefing was critical of Representative Wilson, said she should not have been listening on the call. And also he said that he thought President Trump's words were not offensive, and also that he had instructed President Trump on what to say, and he didn't have any complaints about what President Trump had done on that call. And he criticized Representative Wilson because he said back in 2015, when there was a ceremony dedicating an FBI building, he said that she had taken credit for getting the funding for the building, and he thought that was untrue and inappropriate. And then there was this story that came out today, which I'll show you about. I'll show you from the Washington Post if I can find it here. This is the one people were talking about. Where is it? Oh, sorry, Washington. It's South Florida Sun Sentinel. So let me show you this, what we're referring to get everybody on the same page. Okay, I need to click on a couple of links here. Here's one link, and I'll click on this, and hopefully this takes me to the other link. No, that one's not going to work. Here it is. So this is a video. I'm not going to play the whole video, obviously it's 9 minutes long, but it's a video of Frederica Wilson's speech that supposedly General Kelly was talking about. And in this video, hold on, I just want to show you a screenshot of the video. I'm not going to play the video, but I want to show you a screenshot here. So you can go watch this video on the Sun Sentinel website. But in this video, I haven't watched the whole thing, but what the paper says is that she didn't actually mention the funding in the video. And so there were some questions today saying, hey, Secretary Sanders, does General Kelly still stand by his story when she didn't mention this in the video, or still stand by his criticism of Representative Wilson? And Secretary Sanders said, yes, General Kelly still stands by his criticism. And one thing that Sarah Sanders said is, she said there were other comments made by Representative Wilson that day besides at this speech that other witnesses heard. So she said that which sounds like she's saying maybe what General Kelly was referring to was other comments that she made that day, and he got messed up on the details. So anyways, you can go look up the Sun Sentinel and watch that speech if you want. But there were several questions about that, where media asked some form of question like, hey, is General Kelly are you guys gonna stick by this criticism of Representative Wilson? And basically Secretary Sanders was like, yes. So, but what did you think about the briefing? Let me know. I'd like to hear what you thought. At Lookner on Twitter, at LOOKNER. Let me know what you thought. Chest Harrington writes in, Wilson is evil and only cares about herself. She's sick. Let's see. Donald Mills writes in, was eagerly anticipating question or two about the uranium deal. Maybe next time, LOL. Adriana Stuget, I know I'm pronouncing it wrong, but I'm trying, said the Uranium One issue was not mentioned by anyone. They asked about Russia and Trump, but not about the Clintons and Uranium One. Reagan Better says, any news on the Fed chair pick? Trump finalist down to 4. I have no new news on that. She was asked about it, and I don't remember today. I don't remember exactly what she said. I was running around doing a couple things during the briefing, to prepare. But what was I going to say? I didn't recall her giving any details about it more than we had heard before. Andy T says, I thought John Gizzi was very obedient. So he is the one who usually asks a lot of questions, or more than one question, and then he kept himself to one question because Sarah Sanders requested it. Maybe because it's Friday. I vaguely recall in the past them doing something where there's fewer questions on Friday. I'm not sure. And I just want to make sure I've gotten all your messages so far here. And I wrote down some other notes about the briefing. It wasn't a very eventful briefing today. There were some different questions on different things. For example, there was a report today that came out. The State Department today raised the number of Americans who were hurt in the Cuba sonic attacks to 24 from 22. And that was asked about, but Sarah Sanders basically said it's an ongoing investigation, and I'm not going to give any more details about that. So. Also, she was asked about the ambush in Niger in which 4 soldiers were killed. She said she wasn't going to give any details, comments about that either. As she said, until the Department of Defense completes their review. Yeah, she said we're going to wait until their review is completed. So not a lot of big news coming out of the briefing today. I guess now I'm sure in the media you will have lots and lots of coverage of the whole General Kelly soap opera thing. So that'll go. But in terms of actual like news about policies or world situation, I didn't see a lot new there today. Proud American says Representative Wilson is a waste of oxygen. So we'll be on for a few more minutes here. We'd love to hear what you thought about the press briefing or about any of the big issues going on right now. Is there anything you would have liked to have seen asked about? Oh, you know, I should mention this happened today. It's not a huge, well, it's the tax reform is moving along, and what happened today is the Senate approved a budget plan that had to get done before the tax reform can move forward. So the Senate approved this budget plan, and the House is going to try to soon approve. They have to ultimately approve the same plan, the House and the Senate. But when they do, that will allow a tax cut to pass with only a majority in the Senate, and will allow it to pass without the possibility of a Democratic filibuster. So the tax cut seems to be moving along. One issue, the House and Senate have passed different budget plans. The House one calls for revenue neutral, deficit neutral tax changes, whereas the Senate plan doesn't make the tax changes be revenue neutral and allows them to increase the deficit. So there will have to be some sort of give or take on some sides for that to, they have to reconcile their plans, the House and the Senate. But supposedly that's going to happen soon, and who knows, we might see some kind of tax bill, a tax cut bill of some sort, passed before the end of the year. I do think Congress and the president would like to pass something so they can say we did this big legislative thing in our first year. We'll see what happens on that. Let me know what you think, if that's going to pass or not. Also, you know, this weekend, there probably won't be any briefings, White House press briefings, because they only happen during the week. But if there's breaking news, of course we will come on the air and covering it. To know when we're coming on the air to cover breaking news, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube at Right Side Broadcasting and click the notifications bell so you know when we're coming on the air. Also, you can follow us on Facebook at Right Side Broadcasting and on Twitter at RSB Network. And you can follow me on Twitter at @Lookner. And I'll be posting about breaking news all weekend as I usually do. I see Ron Miller is also, and Roger Vega and Guinevere are also in the chat room moderating, so thank you, moderators. I'm guessing Common Sense is moderating on the website, and maybe others on the website. Oh, and you know, there's one other story I saw, which I wanted to mention to you, and I actually noticed it during the briefing, which had just come out. I guess it came out last night, but I didn't see it. Actually, hold on. I'm messing everything up here. Now, I haven't listened to this yet, but I did find this interesting. The Washington Post reported that a soldier's widow shared her call with President Trump. So this is a 3-minute, 50-second video, which you can watch at the Washington Post. But I wanted to show you real quick, and maybe I'll show you a clip of it. But the article, what it says is that President Trump called this woman whose husband died in Afghanistan. And hang on. Surrounded by her children in the living room, DeAlencar picked up the phone and turned on the speakerphone. After she had waited on hold for 15 minutes, Trump's voice echoed out of the phone's tiny speaker while one of DeAlencar's daughters filmed the conversation. Trump opened by saying how sorry he is about the whole situation before adding that DeAlencar's husband was an unbelievable hero. At that moment when my world was upside down and me and my kids didn't know which way we were going, it felt like I was talking just another regular human, DeAlencar said. Later in the call, Trump invited her to the White House, telling her, if you're around Washington, you come over and see me in the Oval Office, before asking about her oldest son, something. They talked about her children. In total, the phone call ended with President Trump repeating his invitation to the White House and advising DeAlencar to take care of herself. In total, the conversation lasted just under 4 minutes. And DeAlencar said it was a moment of niceness that we needed because we were going through hell, DeAlencar said. So it's an interesting story, you know, for a number of reasons. One reason is just that, you know, we see the press reporting on the phone call with that widow. And there's an implication in some of the reporting that President Trump doesn't know how to talk to these people, but this woman seems very happy with the president's phone call and she said it was a moment of nicety that she needed, and he sounded like a regular person. It was a moment of niceness that we needed. So this woman seems happy about the call, and this is not a conservative publication. This is the Washington Post. I'm guessing if she had something negative to say about President Trump, they would have printed it in the Washington Post. But so that's an interesting, you know, different perspective on President Trump's calls to widows. And also, it's a 4-minute call. It's, you know, 4 minutes is a long call for a president. So it's interesting he took that amount of time to call her. Also, I don't know about how I feel about releasing this publicly, the family doing it. Now, maybe they had good intentions in doing it. I guess My personal opinion is that if you're talking to somebody and the other person thinks it's private, you don't publicize that if you don't have to, for like legal reasons or something. So I feel a little icky about the fact that the family talked to President Trump and then President Trump didn't know this was going to be released or recorded, and then they release it. Now, you could say, well, he should assume everything he says is going to be recorded. Or you could, whatever. I don't know. And look, they might have had good intentions in releasing it. I'm not saying they're bad people at all. I'm just saying I don't like seeing private conversations that both parties don't know are going to be released, end up being released no matter who the parties are. But that being said, do think this is an interesting perspective. I don't know if this has been reported on much in the media. I just heard about it today. But if you want to read this, you can go to the Washington Post website and find it there. And I'm not going to play the whole thing, but let me just see if I can play a few seconds of it.
It's what my husband wanted to do. Yeah,
See,
yeah. Yes, he's just an all-around guy, and I'm glad that
let me just see if I
know a little bit about you.
I just want to hear the start of the call.
Very kind. Well, thank you, President Trump. Those words are very kind. He was an amazing man, an amazing husband, and an amazing soldier. And I couldn't be more proud of my husband than I am right now, sir, to be honest with you. It's what my husband wanted to do. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a clip of that video. If you want to watch the whole video, you can go to the Washington Post. And look, at least that first minute, President Trump did, to me, sound quite sympathetic and didn't sound like he was incompetent and offensive in talking to her. So I think it's important to get, as I said before, I feel like when I was watching the reporting of the Trump phone call and the Frederica Wilson report about it, there's some implications sometimes that President Trump is utterly incompetent in talking to people. So, for example, Morning Joe I check out frequently, and they say things like he has no empathy. That's frequently said on the show by numerous people, including the host, like he's incapable of empathy and stuff, and and feeling for other human beings. And to me, if you look at this call, the reports of it, in the clip of it we saw, it certainly seems like he's being empathetic, and she seems to be comforted. I mean, certainly not made happy because her husband died, which is terrible, but she seems to appreciate and be comforted by his words. So I just think it's a healthy balance to some of the perspective you're seeing in the media. And again, I don't know if this is reported on. I hope the media is reporting this story. And I hope they're showing the clip. I don't know. I haven't been watching, all the news channels all day. But anyways, you can check that out if you'd like. And by the way, the other moderator, I'm sorry, on the website is Glenn O. So as I mentioned, Common Sense and Glenn O moderate on the website. They do a great job of it. And all the moderators on YouTube do a fantastic job as well. So thank you guys. All right. So we are on the post show for the White House press briefing. We've been taking your comments and talking about the stories of the day. And let's see here. I want to see if you had sent me any more messages. We'll be on for a couple more minutes. If you have any thoughts on any of the big stories, on the press briefing or any of the big stories today, write to me on at Lookner on Twitter, at LOOKNER. And again, Right Side Broadcasting, we are viewer supported. So if you enjoy our programming and want to keep seeing it, it's your donations that keep us on the air. So please consider donating. To donate, you can go to the YouTube chat right next to the broadcast. At the bottom of the YouTube chat, there's a little $sign there. You can just click on the little $sign. Or you can go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. Now, Reagan Better, it looks like you sent me a message and then deleted it. Is that what happened, Reagan Better? I think you had a Politico story in there or something. Oh, chatters are Barbara says chatters are asking about my email. What are they asking about, Barbara? They're asking about my email. I check my email during the broadcast. There's no email here today. So yes, chatters are allowed to send me email. You're allowed to send me email. I just check it less frequently than my Twitter. So the best place to reach me is on Twitter during the broadcast. But if you can't reach me on Twitter for some whatever. If you don't have Twitter, you can always email me, although I check that less frequently during the broadcast than my Twitter account. Andrew Sova said he heard a little country music on the broadcast. Sorry about that, Andrew, but you say that it stopped, so that was probably just a little malfunction on our end. Thank you for letting us know, though. I just want to do a little news check here real quick. I always like to see if anything happened in the last few minutes while we've been on the air. I don't see much totally new right now. So anyways, I think here we are going to wrap up the stream for right now. We will be keeping our eye on the news all weekend for you. If there are big events that happen, be sure that we will come on the air and cover them live. So if you want to know when we're coming on the air, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and click the notifications bell. Also, you can follow us on Facebook at Right Side Broadcasting and on Twitter at RSB Network. I am on Twitter at Lookner. And Joe, I forget what your email address is. Joe Seals, Right Side CEO, who is producing today, is on Twitter at Joe Seals. Why can't I remember Jacob Seals' Twitter too? And Jacob Seals is at Jacob RSBN Music. He does the music, the great music for Right Side Broadcasting. So, and produces as well. All right, so we're going to wrap this up. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you to the moderators so much for moderating the chat rooms, as usual, doing your amazing job. Thank you, Joe, for your excellent job producing. And we'll keep an eye on the news for you. So for now, we hope you all have a great rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend. Maybe we'll be seeing you this weekend if there's big news. So that often is the case. But for now, well, actually, before I was about to sign off, but I got a couple messages here. Let me just see. Barbara says the chatter said they emailed you. Barbara, I just checked and I see nothing in my inbox. So that's the best I can do. But thanks for the heads up, Barbara. And Drew says, it was not the whole call, it was what he said that the woman heard and how she took it. Even John Kelly admits Trump said it, but didn't mean what she thought he said. Yeah, so Drew, what John Kelly said yesterday is that part of the call that the representative was complaining about, where Representative Wilson said President Trump told the soldier's widow that he was doing what he wanted to do, that he had signed up for. General Kelly yesterday said that actually was what General Kelly had been told when his son had passed away, and also that was something that General Kelly suggested that President Trump had say to the woman, to the widow, and perhaps President Trump didn't use the exact same words as General Kelly, so we don't have a full accounting of what he said, but General Kelly did say that yesterday. And we just got a donation from Nazreen, the Egyptian opera singer, gave $5 and said, great channel. Thank you so much, Nazreen. We really appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Barbara, no problem. Have a great day as well. Drew says, also, just because he was nice to the woman in the Washington Post video doesn't mean he wasn't in the call to the other woman. Oh, I never said anything about that. I never said that this shows that the Washington Post video shows what he was like in that other call. All I said, my point in showing this was saying there's an implication in some of the coverage I've seen that President Trump is totally not empathetic and has no idea how to talk to people in a situation like this. And I was saying, well, this video seems to provide evidence for the other side. But I wasn't saying that this video shows anything about the call in question with that widow that Representative Wilson was talking about. I didn't make that claim at all. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up here. Thank you for joining us. I just said all my thank yous, so I won't say them again. But again, moderators, donors, producers, thank you to everyone. We'll see you this weekend if there's breaking news, so keep an eye out for Right Side Broadcasting. But for now, I am Steve Lookner. Hope you have a great day. We all at Right Side Broadcasting hope you have a great day and a great weekend, and we will see you soon. Have a good one from Right Side Broadcasting.